All right, so I have some selections from the Wikipedia page for Adrian David Choke, who's an Australian politician.
Okay, sure.
Adrian David Choke, AM, which is an Order of Australia Medal,
Yep.
is an Australian electrical engineer and academic. He is a professor at I University in Tokyo, Japan. That's a lowercase I.
Damn.
In the 2019 federal election, he ran to represent the division of Boothby as a member of the far-right Fraser Anning's Conservative National Party.
Okay.
Choke has been described as a sex robot expert.
What?
In 2004, he developed Human Pac-Man, an early augmented reality game. In 2005, he created the Poultry Internet Project, which used a customized haptic jacket to allow him to remotely hug a chicken. In 2015, Choke and his students created Senti, a device which allowed individuals to transmit fragrances via smartphones with the installed device and aroma cartridges. Do you want to hear his last invention?
Well, I'm thinking it's probably sex robot related, considering that you've said he's a sex robot guy.
In 2016, Choke and student Emma Yang Zhang co-created Kissinger, a device which allows people to remotely transmit the physical sensation of kissing.
That's fucking weird. I mean, look, listen, there's already those fucking, what is it called? Like, Love Sense or something. The couple sex toy that's meant to work over a distance.
I think there's a bunch of things like that. I think what he's selling, which, to be clear, like, this is a guy with Fraser Anning's party.
Yeah.
He's been criticized for equating human-robot marriage with interracial and same-sex marriage.
But it sounds like he's into that shit.
Yeah, he really is. He's obviously, like, he gets criticized for demonstrating his sex toy things with students. But also, he's attached to this, like, chess expert who's also a sex robot guy. Anyway, and he's in Fraser Anning's party. Hi, that's Adrian.
Damn, Adrian, that's fucking crazy.
Anyway.
I mean, you know, people are entitled to their sexual proclivities. You know, I mean, let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom. But I ain't spending any time on it. But I ain't spending any time on it. But I ain't spending any time on it. Let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom. But I ain't spending any time on it.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Shouldn'ta Come. It's a wonderful week here in Australia or whatever, and we're finally going to talk about Uncle Bobonomics.
Oh my gosh, Uncle Bobonomics.
Do you see that picture of Bob that says Australians Forever?
Yes.
That's the cover of his Facebook page.
That does not surprise me whatsoever. That looks badly enough photoshopped that it could either have been us doing it or it's officially him.
Like he did it himself?
Yeah.
I'd be impressed if he can Photoshop that.
I'd be impressed if he did that, but I think it's probably like, he's probably like, oh, I'll just get one of the boys in the town to sort out something for me.
But I've been tossing and turning about this episode. The title is meant to describe the two forms of Bob we haven't touched on yet. Uncle Bob, the self-appointed savior of Indigenous people, and Bobonomics, the government-supported small business model on which Bob's ideal agrarian socialist society would be formed.
Hell yeah.
These two ideas are intimately intertwined at their basis, although we're not going to explore Uncle Bob to the extent I wanted to today, because the episode got too long again.
Hey, nice. We're looking for Bob Part 4.
We got Bob 4. But the basic question that Bob and his ilk have asked, and that perhaps everyone asks, and Bobonomics is Bob's answer to this question. I clearly didn't script this well enough.
That's
and
fine.
That question is...
What is the ideal relationship between people and the land they live on?
Yeah, and it's
good question.
Kind of the overarching question that government asks in many ways. You know, what is the meaning of life? Why did we do all this society and civilization bullshit? And how do we keep it going so that things keep going well for, you know, our descendants or whatever? It's a very subjective question, obviously. Like, what do you mean by ideal? What are the boundaries of the land we live on? And who do you mean by people? Starting with that last question, the traditional racist, the kind of person that Bob Catter would describe as a racist, which, you know, is a guy, I guess, implicitly or obviously excludes a great many people by their definition.
Yes.
They're racists in the classical Western tradition sense, and while Bob is attractive to many of these people, they're not exactly him. He's noticeably kinder when talking about early Chinese merchants than when talking about, you know, the communist Chinese.
Yeah.
To the extent of describing China as one of the traditional homelands of Queenslanders.
Interesting.
There's times in the 1800s where about half the population of Queensland especially North Queensland is Chinese.
Which also makes sense.
He also specifically shouts out Punjab as one of the homelands of the future Australian.
Crazy.
He's like, we got to bring Sikhs in here.
We need them now.
He says it over and over again. I think long-term profitability slightly outranks racist for Bob. So, although Bob has been known to describe himself as a Western chauvinist when asked, it's not like the same lines as the average classical racist.
Yeah.
However, he does have almost entirely the same views of the average classical racist. For instance, Fraser Anning. It's hard to say whether Fraser is more famous for Nazi propaganda or being hit in the head with a fucking egg.
God, the egg was so good, though. I love Egg Boy.
Egg Boy's
I
a
do
hero.
love Egg Boy. He's a real champion.
Fraser Anning, his maiden speech, which... Oh, God, a burp's coming.
Let it out. There we go.
His maiden speech, which was basically, bring back white Australia, schools are gay now, give everybody guns, and the Bradfield Big Inland Sea Scheme.
Oh, yeah.
And Bob loves that shit, obviously.
Yeah.
The bit that went the furthest in the media was when he said there needed to be a final solution to deal with immigration, which is the famous Nazi line about, you know, the Holocaust.
Killing all the Jews or whatever.
Killing all the Jews. There's also some of the developmentalist shit that Bob's always banging on about. Fraser is a grazier from a family of notable murderers of Aboriginal people, but also like big planters, big land, I think cattle.
Yeah.
Fraser made his political come up with One Nation, but he left just hours before being sworn in as a member of parliament. So Bob snaps him up, right?
That's so funny.
And Bob, at first, he's trying to support his like extremely new senator. His first statement went like this, and I'm obviously just going to keep the most interesting and entertaining parts.
Yeah. Absolutely. 1000%. I support everything he said. It was a magnificent speech. It was solid gold. Our party unashamedly has been pro-Israel, pro-Jewish, and will continue to be. 90% of Australia has been waiting for someone to say it and believe it. I'm sick and tired of the lily pad left, and it's about time the hard left stood up and booted those bastards out of the Labour movement.
Yeah, so Bob's like, hey, I know the Labour movement is accused of being racist. Maybe we should lean into that a bit more.
Maybe that's a good thing.
So he spends a while trying to make the point, and an interesting point, that Fraser Anning's speech is pro-Jewish because the people he wants to keep out, Muslims, are in theory the anti-Jewish people.
A bizarre thing to be equating, but I mean, what makes sense about Bob Carter?
Well, I think the thing is that like that's kind of a lot of modern racists aren't particularly anti-Semitic. They mainly care about Muslims. And Bob's like, well, I got to reach these people.
Fuck.
So he's basically saying like Fraser Anning is being called out as an anti-Semite, but he's actually an Islamophobe and he loves farmers.
Got it.
It's kind of a modern Australian neo-Nazi movement, right?
Classic.
Because like the modern Australian neo-Nazi, I think like other than the ultras, who I think are kind of cringe within their movement, they're mostly thinking about like black people and brown people.
Yeah.
So Bob's then asked to explain like, okay, well, why is Fraser Anning saying Nazi things then, right? So here's how Bob supports Fraser Anning.
Fraser is a knockabout bloke. He's owned pubs and he's not stupid. He built his own aeroplane, but he hasn't read all the history books. He didn't go to university. He was out working building pipelines for the coal and the gas and the oil with a hard hat on. He's a member of the hard left, not the lily pad left. He didn't go to university to know the significance of all these words. Fraser would have no idea about what that meant. For those of us like myself that are fascinated by history and have read the history books, it is one of the worst statements in all of human history. Fraser is giving a speech saying we should protect the Jewish people in Australia.
Yeah, which, like, he's like, oh, listen, Fraser's dumb, all right? I mean, he built his own airplane, but, like, he doesn't know about these things. He's just coincidentally saying them.
Yeah, you know, this is my beautiful ignorant boy.
Yeah, he does his best. He's always doing his best. And then he talks about how he's not racist because not only is he pro-Jewish, he's very, very pro-Jewish. And he said, and that's not just because I'm also of Semitic stock.
God,
You know, he's
the
always-
classic.
He's always talking about stock.
You know?
Making this big soup. And he wants to bring more Jews into Australia. And then while he's on this, right, he's like, and also Sikhs.
Okay, man.
He won't stop. And it's because of Punjabi truckers, I have to assume.
Surely.
That's like how he must know these people. And then he then reiterates about how he claims to be a blackfella from time to time.
Come on, man.
Burnish his anti-racist party bona fides before reiterating that Australia must prevent the spread of Islam or whatever, right? So for comment, we go to a sugarcane farmer based in Cairns who says he's known Bob for 30 years, having had him over a few times, loves him, loves his family. and considers Bob a good bloke. This is Abdul Ghani Mohammed, whose family came from Pakistan to Australia in the early 1900s, and he was shocked by Bob's comments.
I could not believe that Bob was saying it. He's just helped the Muslim community here in Cairns to get a permit for their imam to stay here for another 6 months. I'd like to talk to Bob about it, see what he's got to say. Ask him if this is the real Bob or not. He shouldn't put himself down to stand up for this bloke. I'll have a go at him next time I see him.
Right? So
Yeah.
Bob's Muslim friend is like, you just helped our imam stay here. Like, what are you talking about? He's confused because he's like, man, Bob's always out here helping the Muslim community of Cairns, and now he's like, we got to kick all the Muslims out.
It's just like, what are you talking about,
It's
bro?
like, Bob, you come to my house for dinner.
Like, we hang out.
We hang out. And so in response, Bob Catter says, don't ever call them Muslims. These are Australians.
What? Fucking, he's got so much dementia.
It's the same line as like, don't call me Lebanese, right? It's just this whole like, no, everything's gone.
It's all different.
We're all Australians now.
We're all Australians now.
And it's like, bro, but they are Muslims. You'd know that because you met their
You
imam.
know that, yeah.
And he's like, yeah, they said this bloke's preaching peace and he needs to stay here. And so he stayed. And it's like, how do you,
Yeah,
like,
man, sure.
how do you understand it in this moment and not in another moment? I imagine Abdul eventually had a go at Bob because it took him 2 months to decide that Fraser Anning is a looser unit than even he can handle. Here's Bob talking to reporters after kicking him out of the party.
Our party is an anti-racist party, and he's making comments that are racist. It's deeply painful for me. He's a bloke I like very much, and I've got immense respect for. About 99% of the time he's been solid gold, but that 1% he would just not desist. I dread talking to him because I feel so terrible about it, but he was told again and again to stop, and he wouldn't stop. So
from I support him
1,000%,
1,000%, now it's like 99%. That 1%'s really bad though.
You know?
So, back to the pertinent question at hand, the Fraser Anning aside. There's a bunch of people that I wouldn't describe as people that Bob Catter would describe as people. And it's not because he's a woke lefty and I'm a fascist.
Oh, I thought you were a fascist and he was a woke lefty.
No, I'm a woke lefty and he's a fascist.
I always get this confused.
Yeah, it's the unborn children of Australia.
Ah, classic.
Like, I mean, really, like the unconceived, unheard of, immaterial ideas of potential children, they're part of Bob Catter's view of people.
Classic.
So back to our initial statement, we come back to what's ideal then, right? What is the ideal relationship with people to the land? You can get to an environmentalist standpoint from a Catholic basis of future morality, like if we do this or that action now, life will be worse or whatever for whichever children are alive in the future. So for Catholic reasons, let's not open that mind because it'll negatively impact the future kids because of global warming or mine runoffs or ghosts. The priority is the sustainability and quality of life for these future people without consideration for like the short-term profits. But you can still be a Catholic and say, let's get this bread. Catholics were apparently divided over the Galilee Basin coal mine. That's from the Catholic Leader, which is...
Damn, not the Catholic Leader.
Bob's priority isn't just the quality of life for these future people, it's the quantity of it. We need as many people in the future, and they all have to have all the things we have today. This is for racist reasons, sure, to keep the Asians out, like we talked about. But I think Bob's racist about Asians in the way he thinks they're going to be communists because Asians are communists. The Japanese, by his estimation, are one of the successful races due to their post-World War II boom when they embrace market capitalism.
Classic.
And we spoke about this last week, but last episode rather, but he says that the Torres Strait Islanders are arguably the most successful race in terms of the mothering of children and life expectancy.
Yeah.
So, kids, right? Here's a chart from SBS showing the amount of people in Australia year on year, published in 2024, based on UN stats. The colors are just the age.
Yeah, okay.
Here's the chart if we add Bob's ideal population projections for Australia.
Damn, he just wants like shitloads.
Yeah, so at the end of the book, which is written kind of as an extended prayer called Riding the Lead, he says that his hope is by 2037 there will be 55 million people here.
How many people are here now?
So there's 27.5 now. Bob thinks that we should have had 32 million in 2012.
Why does he think that?
To stop the Asians.
Right.
There needs to be so many kids.
I always forget about it all being to stop Asians.
It's like, it's that's not the only reason, but it is one of the base reasons. There's like intertwined base reasons.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it's like we have to stop the Asians so we can exploit this land.
Yeah.
But Bob's going to achieve this through obviously his demographic migration program. So like the traditional homelands, Europe, Sikhs, and Chinese.
Bizarre.
It's just really strange. But like
Fully
some
bizarre.
Chinese people, right? But also through like big parent payments, baby bonuses, or whatever we call them to
Yeah.
incentivize people to have kids. Like he's advocating for like a fair bit of money to be given to like, you know, even single mothers.
Yeah.
Like that's something that he breaks with other Catholics about because he's like, hey, if they're raising the kid,
Hey, a baby's a baby.
a baby's a baby, give that mother some money. So on the evidence, Bob's relationship with childbirth is deeply tied to his sense of like his self and his family and his place in the world and like
Yeah.
the ethos.
He's only had good experiences giving birth.
That
Really busts that bobussy right open.
Babusi.
Yeah.
Katusi. Babusi. Katusi.
Babussy Kadissi.
Katusi.
Child bobs.
Child Bob. It took me a while to get it. The way Bob puts it, Mabel, his mum, was told that she could never have kids due to the threat that it would pose to her health. She has 3 children regardless, including Bob, and the health issues that childbirth caused seem to shorten her life. That's what everyone says. She dies when he's in his 20s. She's at the age of 52. And Bob says that, this is a quote, she would have never been happy unless she was a mother. So if she had to die, well, she had to die.
I think that's so interesting. And it's because it's crazy that you can look at the person who, like, carried you and gave birth to you and just see them as inhuman. I think that's really fascinating. I think that's something about that generation and the generation after where, or even like, you know, modern generation with modern incels and shit, where you can look at, like, you can look at your mother and you can hate your mother. That's fine. Like, people hate their mothers. But to look at her and to be like, yeah, her only function was this.
Yeah.
Is crazy. Like, it's like, damn, you know? So, like, how do you justify anything at that point? I mean, at that point, we should just enslave all women and just, like, rape babies into them, right? That's the end point of this, right?
Yeah, that's what's understood as the outcome of the kind of society that Bob wants because of the motivations that it causes.
You know? Because it's just crazy. Like,
It is. And he doesn't talk about his mom a lot. All the accounts about his childhood are like he was much closer to his mom than his dad.
well, yeah, probably.
Because his dad's
Given how
like,
fucked he is, like,
yeah,
he probably had a great role model. Like, let's not cut Bob Senior any slack here. He
Yeah.
was probably a fucking cunt too.
he was apparently also just like never there.
Yeah,
Because it's like, well, he was in Mount Isa and I was going to school
jet setting
elsewhere.
and shit.
Yeah.
Doing his political shit.
And, you know, I imagine Mabel was probably told to believe this idea,
Yeah,
that being Bob's mom, from when she was young. Like, she would have been
yeah.
brainwashed, as it were,
You
or
know.
forced to say, or this is like the line that Bob Sr. gives Bob. It's like, yeah, your mom really wanted kids.
You know, like, you gotta have, I mean, and this is like an example as well of, you know, when we looked at the Pauline episode, how Pauline's mum was also like, you know, Honora, sure, you know, was told like, hey, stop having kids, it's bad for you. And she's like, I will have some more, thank you.
Yeah.
And it's like, is
I
that
need to have
because,
these.
but it's a question of, in my mind, did you have to have them? Were you forced to have them? Did you just have them by circumstance because contraception isn't really a thing? Like what, is this an accident? Is this on purpose? Like, what caused you to have these children against all recommended advice, you know?
And I think you're right in saying, like, so if the presentation of, like, I have to have these kids is probably an outcome of being forced to have those kids
Yeah.
in a very, like, insidious cultural way, but also probably by your partner.
Yeah.
And that's all tied to the third thing of contraception.
You know? It's just nutty. It's just nutty.
It
but,
is.
hey, man. Hey, Bob. Yeah, that's super cool that your mum died so that you could live. That's really cool.
I don't think everyone respects your fiction. And, you know, I think you should get closer to crocodiles.
Good for you, man.
Yeah. I wish she'd lived longer, which is a way of saying, like, I wish Bob was never born, I guess.
Which is kind of crazy. Because, like, it's just a crazy, crazy thing to say.
Yeah.
She would never have been happy unless she was a mother. So if she had to die, well, she had to die.
He said this like
That's crazy.
2 months ago in a recent interview.
That's just fucking crazy. He is so off the air.
So this is I guess, however old he is, me in saying it. So who knows?
But he still holds power, you know? So we have to fucking listen. Like, it doesn't matter how old he is. The fact of the matter is, he's in public office, so we have to fucking pay attention.
He's in public office, and, like, in researching him, I've seen the amount of things he's got federal funding for in his electorate, and he always seems to, like, note that it's through his, close personal relationship with Anthony Albanese. Like, I don't know if Albo's like, yeah, Bob's my mate, or if he's saying kind of what you're saying. Well, it's like, well, he's there.
Yeah.
If I want to make what I want to have happen,
I guess I have to fucking deal with this guy.
I have to deal with him one way or another.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going.
I mean, clearly he hasn't been voted out.
Yeah. I have an aside here about childbirth rates.
Go off. Let's go.
Okay. The common wisdom on how many children people tend to have kind of goes like this. Pre-industrialization, people had more kids during situations of abundance, so we could say when they're richer. Post-industrialization, in theory, you have the opposite effect in that wealthier families tend to have less children. The relationship between income and fertility is a crowded field of study, and I read stuff saying that the trend actually is starting to change, and that income and fertility are actually both more dependent on culture than having a causal relationship between each other, and that you start to see a massive fertility rise at very high incomes. Suffice to say, it's a complicated relationship that people can kind of only take a swing at, but Bob and I have mostly opposite opinions, and I think population scientist is a scary job title.
That's fair.
There's my population dynamics aside.
Nice. So yeah, functionally, what? The idea is just like, hey, if you have resources, you have more children because you have the resources for more children.
That's a pre-industrialization ideal.
And then I guess
to be clear, I think this is as much about like kids reaching even childhood.
Yeah, like maturity.
Yeah, it's not like a poor family back then might have 8 childbirths, 2 of whom survive. A rich family is having 6 childbirths, 5 of whom survive.
Yep. Okay.
The rich family is, having more kids, has more kids, even though the poor family's having more kids.
Yep. Has given birth to more children,
exactly.
But less survive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
And then when you get to industrialization, the middle class tend not to have as many kids. People wait longer to have kids. This is the common wisdom. It bears out in some circumstances. People tend to wait longer to have kids because they're trying to maximize their earning potential.
Yeah.
Especially women, obviously.
Yeah.
Once women enter the workforce, people have kids later.
Yeah.
And if you're having kids later, you're going to have less.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But, like, that was told to me as a fact for a long time. And in reading about it, it's like, oh, this is so messy.
Yeah.
The statistics here are so messy in terms of like long-term like childbirth rates.
Yeah.
And a lot of the statistics about the past have been compiled by people wanting to make one point or another.
Okay, so there's some cherry picking kind of situation involved.
Exactly. So that's just a little aside. So anyway, the ideal relationship, if the ideal relationship between all of these people and the land they live on, we'll leave the borders to the side, is one that produces the conditions for the most and healthiest future children. That's Bob's view. How does that impact Bob's views about policies regarding Indigenous people? People are extremely complicated, right? It'd be crazy if there was an extremely instructive part of an interview with Bob Catter in 1984 laying out my whole thesis about his worldview in specific terms.
That would be crazy. All right, well, I realised my plan would mean severe disruption to traditional Aboriginal culture. However, only private ownership can restore Aboriginal pride and give them prosperity. The Japanese had to throw over their feudal culture when they embraced notions of private enterprise. So too must the Aborigines shed much of their communal traditions.
Do you like it? Thank you, Mr. Logan. You're the best.
So, I mean, I didn't even really need to work too far. Like, I just found this, I'm like, oh, he said it.
Perfect, done.
He's like, it's sad, but you got to get on the private ownership train.
Like, damn, that sucks, but...
Well, let's move on. So to get this fully out of the way, as far as I'm aware, there is no evidence that Bob is Aboriginal in any way.
Yeah, of course there's not. He's fucking Lebanese.
He's
Don't say that.
No, he's fucking... Well, I've forgotten his wife's name. Despite his oft-repeated...
Oh, don't say that.
I'm sorry, Bob. It's despite his oft-repeated claim to identify as a blackfella on odd occasions. In 2017, for instance, he started his speech in the House of Representatives with, "All my life I have been called a blackfella. I take great pride in being identified that way." I don't think that's true.
Yeah,
the first bit.
all my life I had to struggle, I say, growing up middle class.
All my life I had to fight. Catter.
Come on, Bob. Come on, Bob.
He says he takes great pride. I don't think it's impossible or even unlikely that he has like indigenous cousins, but I don't know if that's who he means when he says my blackfella cousin brothers, because he speaks like a fucking weirdo. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
he kind of does. This might even just be like mates, you know.
Exactly, but cousin brother is that's a phrase that
It's a
ethnic
specific-
people use.
It's a very
My
specific
cousins
term.
use that phrase
Yeah.
a lot because a big reason is that like my cousins and I refer to each other with words that just mean brother and sister and such.
Like sibling, yeah.
And when you're talking in English, you don't want to say, like, you learn pretty quickly here is that when you refer to your cousin as your brother, people go, "Oh, you guys are siblings?"
Like, oh, I didn't realize
It's like,
you had
exactly.
a brother. And it's
And
like,
so-
oh, no, not like an immediate brother.
And so
but
you
like,
learn cousin brother.
Yeah.
Because our terms for cousin all convey gender.
Yes.
Whereas the English word cousin obviously doesn't.
Yeah.
And so that feels like man, you're Lebanese.
You know?
But Bob often talks about practical reconciliation being his driving force. This is a Howard-era term, according to Professor Megan Davis, writing on Reconciliation Australia, which aims to bifurcate reconciliation into its symbolic and apparently mutually exclusively practical components. It's wonderful politics because it can really mean whatever the speaker wants it to mean. Like, it's one thing to look at an acknowledgement of country and find its symbolism patronizing or lacking when compared to the nature or scale of the problem that it's presented, like contrasting that with building medical centers, right? And acknowledgements of country specifically are something that aren't super popular amongst Indigenous people, especially compared to like welcome to country, which is a different kind of ceremony with its own criticisms. But conservatives of this country wield it to label an aspect of reconciliation symbolic, such as self-determination or a treaty, that obviously has practical impacts in terms of how people are able to live. Because a treaty would then imply different property rights.
Yeah.
And the treaty itself might be symbolic, and you can attack the idea of the treaty. And the idea that, like, we shouldn't be focusing on symbolic things, we should be doing practical things, look at the closing the gap targets, look at how many people are sick or whatever. But it's a sneaky way to still attack those things. It's kind of telling your audience, like, which bits you can attack.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And it's like, the dog whistling.
Yeah.
In Bob's flattening of history, the Queensland frontier wars and massacres are one of history's many wars of the storied past. Neighbouring entities of fierce patriots trade roughly equivalent blows until one of them has won, which is the ultimate arbiter of a race's success. And now we must put the past behind us and work together, like some kind of united kingdom, despite the fact that our ancestors once soiled the earth with each other's blood, like, the Celts and the Picts and such.
Yeah.
In telling the story of Cloncurry's settlement, he's recounting events that we all know about, but with a very different emphasis. So he looks at the four founders of Cloncurry, the four white dudes who started off the occupation and the killing, to demonstrate a perceived complexity of the frontier wars. So first there's Ernest Henry, who Bob assigns one of my favorite ever spurious stats.
Go on.
Ernest Henry is the only Australian to be the founder of 3 towns.
Damn, buddy, you didn't want to talk about his, like, long beard?
You know what? It's not even the longest beard out of these 4.
Fuck.
The towns, for the record, are Cloncurry, Hewenden, and Gunpowder. Gunpowder, Queensland.
Come on, man.
In case you were interested, here's Bob on Ernest.
Ernest Henry rode 3 days on horseback with a Calcadoon spear through him. Henry didn't believe in pain, said it was all in the mind.
Why'd he get a Calcadoon spear through him? I guess no one knows.
No one knows.
Bob won't
He
tell
fell
us.
on it.
Yeah. Then there's Alexander Kennedy and his mailman, Hartig, who's hatcheted to death.
Damn.
Alexander Kennedy.
Yeah, look at his... he also has quite a beard.
He looks like Rasputin.
Yeah.
Then there's Roger Sheaffe, who was never attacked, and, in fact, quote from Bob, lived at Fort Constantine Station with a number of young Calcadoon women with whom he enjoyed a good relationship.
Yeah, I'm sure he did.
Right? He obviously doesn't interrogate this at all. These
No.
bitches loved old Roger.
He's just like, yeah, the ladies loved him, and what's not to love? It's like, I don't know.
Unsheath
He's
the
massacring
sheath.
everybody.
Well, so it seems like he's not doing as much killing. Once the killing happens, he takes the women.
Yeah.
But then there's James Powell, who, on the evidence, had his entrails removed and then was speared to death.
Good for him.
That's pretty much all we get about James Powell's death. Like, the witnesses are all people who are on James Powell's side, right? That are reported, right?
Yeah.
We don't get to hear from Bob about the poem that was written in his elegy and said at his funeral, which ended with, "For every one of his poor bones, a Calcadoon shall die." Powell, who is Kennedy's business partner, was an early settler, and the massacres of indigenous people and raids on their communities in the area had already started, so we can assume what he's up to. And after Powell's death, Kennedy is the one who goes to the police and gets reinforcements when it's clear that the settlers can't finish the massacre by themselves.
Yeah.
Bob doesn't give us that information. But the Centre for 21st Century Humanities database of the colonial frontier massacres in Australia does. In their record about the site called Battle Creek, next to Battle Mountain in Cloncurry. Why is it called that?
Come on. That's so stupid.
They have this excerpt from a policeman's diary, which recounts what happened after. An hour before sundown, I had my troopers in ambush around the camp, which was a very large one, there being apparently upwards of 150 blacks in it. They resisted, and as further hesitation would have involved the escape of the offenders and possibly the destruction of my little party, I gave the order to fire, and 30 of the blacks were shot.
Is there literally a fucking plaque there and everything?
So that plaque, the reason I've actually sourced it, that is from like a descendant of the Calcadoon, as it were, people that has been put up there relatively recently to commemorate their ancestors. On the side of Battle Mountain. And yeah, like I normally don't give a shit about sourcing pictures for the YouTube. That, shout out Bradine, shout out Jackie. I know you all are listening, but like, yeah, I mean, it was, I don't know, it's neat.
Yeah.
As always, even in his diary, the killer tends to massage the facts in his favor, because, like, they're saying 30. The number that most people agree on is, like, upwards of 150.
Jesus fucking Christ.
You just have to take for granted that the event is always bloodier than the settler recounts it, unless he's trying to scare you, I guess.
I guess, yeah.
So Bob says a couple of pages later, on the evidence, Calcadoon may have been a generic name for all the many tribes around Cloncurry. He loves saying "on the evidence" when he's about to state an opinion. Anyway.
God damn it. He's like, based on what I've seen.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, man, did you look very hard?
Well, he's read all the history books. Like, Fraser hasn't.
Fraser hasn't done it, but Bob has. Bob's read all of the history books.
So Bob says, while many of them, meaning the Calcadoon, would ultimately die in the conflicts with white settlers, these tribes held the British occupation at bay for nearly half a century. And to, like, bolster whatever point he's making, he's like, a century later, parents will be like, don't stay after dark or the Calcadoons will get you.
Bob, that's not the serve you think it is. Like, that is not the like, clap back you think it is.
So this is, I think, aimed at people who are like, I'm not racist. Asians are good at maths. That's a positive thing.
You know?
If I'm racist, I'm only positive racist. You know, those people?
Yeah.
They're voting for Bob Catter. Like, as opposed to, like, this race or that race is savage, they're fierce, warlike, brave, or courageous.
Yeah.
And then you give them a positive epithet, and then they can be justly defeated and discarded into the past. Same energy as Bob Sr.'s Calcadoon helicopters.
Yeah.
The brave warriors that we destroyed.
Exactly.
That also allows you to celebrate the most brutal of the settlers. Because, well, you have to admit, they helped us found Queensland. We spoke about Fraser Anning earlier, right? Whose family were noted pastoralists. Bob's definitely like, Fraser's from a good family or whatever. They helped build Australia. You know that type of whitewashing?
Yeah.
So the Annings did a lot of killing and slaving to the point that Frank Han, another pastoralist in the region, wrote in his diary one year like, oh, yeah, and I saw Anning coming back from hunting blacks. Like in the tone of like, oh, I saw a really big truck.
You know, like, oh, yeah, he was just coming around, killed a lot of them.
It makes sense because Han is like one of the most brutal of the early settlers. Like, in terms of just the scale of everything you can kind of imagine.
Yeah.
And his story is going to be specifically controversial for Bob in his flattening of history. Talbot there is Frank's assistant, who, like, it's implied that they're companions. But
it's entirely possible, considering this is a white man and a black man, that the black man is just his sex slave, functionally.
I think that is what is implied by the things.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of reports are trying to frame Han as not being as racist as it sounds. It's propaganda. And so they're hinting that they're like a normal gay couple.
That is impossible given the circumstances they are in. Don't even come at me with that shit.
They're hinting in the way, what did you tell me? Confirmed bachelor, like that term, where it's like, if you know, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, age gap, you know.
Jesus, how big's the age gap? How old is he?
I think that's like a 30-year-old man at most, and Hand's like in his 60s.
Yeah.
Not much is known about Talbot, including like I think his name, because it wasn't Talbot.
No, surely not. Jesus Christ.
But Frank and his brother William are like brutal, violent slavers and ethnic cleansers. There's plenty of grotesque details available at the article by Arena that I found this story from. The article's titled "Still Fighting the Frontier Wars," but it's all as bad as you're imagining. It's sadistic and it's brutal. Both Han and the Annings did their dirty work in Catter's current electorate of Kennedy, and descendants of that class really want a major highway repaved and renamed Han Highway. And so Bob's party, it seems to be more of a Robbie project. Just refer to it as Han Highway already to honor the monsters. And it's just like, you can see that dirt road there.
Yeah.
Apparently something like 10% of Australia's fruit and vegetables goes over that road.
Jesus Christ. And that's crazy, actually. I mean, it makes complete fucking sense. This is out in the middle of nowhere. It's not got, like, eyes on it, so people are just going to leave it as a dirt track, but that's crazy that amount of sustenance comes through there.
Well, I think it's an outcome of industry being developed, especially, like, in the last 50 years in purely capitalist ways. And so there isn't this large-scale plan. Like, okay, if we're going to have a big farm here,
we should probably put a big road here so that stuff can get from the farm to the city.
Yeah. Plus also the value of growing stuff up north and sending it out somewhere. And, like, because in the now, Bob kind of views all of these people as flattened. They're all individuals, and so you can celebrate their good things while taking time to think about the bad things. But, like, all that culture and society stuff's in the past. We can look at it, we can marvel at it, be wistful about it, but right now we have to be practical and get to work and make the Han Highway.
All right, let's go.
We check back in with Bob in 1976, in his first term of state government, from an article in the Sydney Tribune.
Quote, "If they're not prepared to work, let them starve." This profound statement on the unemployed was credited to National Party MP Mr. Catter Jr. Despite the ravings of Mr. Catter, the member for the rural seat of Kennedy, it is almost impossible to find a job in many Queensland towns, especially in the country. Says Queensland.
Oh no. I was about to say that's my fault, but I think
it's not. Yeah. That's like a typo from the fucking newspaper itself. Queensland.
Oh no, the Sydney Tribune.
Come on, Sydney. Nearly 6% of the workforce is now registered as unemployed, giving Queensland the second highest rate in Australia. Indications are that the position will get worse.
You know, like, if the job's... Nice.
Thanks.
If the job's not there, the job's not there, right?
Yeah.
So, Bob comes into state power during the Bjelke-Petersen government, the ripples of which hang over this state to this day.
Yeah.
Bob's spoken about Joe many times since then, having called him one of the greatest Australians. His general view, I think, is that Joe was only vaguely aware of the skullduggery in Brisbane, the police brothels and the police violence and the police drugs. And as a good Christian, he mustn't have approved of it, and so they kept it from him.
Yeah, but...
This is a pretty consistent view amongst, like, Joe apologists.
And also, like, I think this is also classic Bob glazing. He's just like, well, I liked him.
Yeah.
So...
He got
that
up every
means
day.
this. And it's like, come on, man. You gotta grow up sometime. I know it's probably too late for you. You're too old for this shit.
It's too old.
But, like, I just think, just because you like someone doesn't mean they're a good person, Bob. Come on. I like you, but you're not a good person.
That's a really profound way to put it, actually. Yeah. And yeah, like, I think Clive says the same thing. I think he's the one who's like, Joe got up and said the Bible every morning.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he did fucking say that.
It's like the whole thing.
What are you talking about?
David Littleproud talks about this as well, because they're all like, and all of the like police stuff in Brisbane, that's just like, oh, these bad, naughty boys. Bob's exact quote was like, some of the boys should have definitely seen a bit of prison time in that period.
I do remember you telling me this,
yeah.
Which is really funny, where he's just like, oh, I reckon they should have had a little bit of prison time. And it's like, come on, man.
So, in how Joe cut all the real estate red tape for Clive and the Gold Coast White Shoe Brigade, his government also poured unimaginable money into the coal industry. At the time, according to an article by Guy Pearce in The Monthly, Bob thought this was irresponsible risk-taking by Joe. I didn't come across any comments by Bob specifically on this issue in my readings, but in general, Bob doesn't like to see governments giving money to a big company, right?
Makes sense. He's a small business fan.
Exactly. Now, however, Bob frames it this way.
Were you to remove the close relationship between Sir Joe and Leslie Thiess? Leslie, Thiess, Were you to remove the close relationship between Sir Joe and Leslie Tees from history, you would erase the coal industry from the face of Queensland. Damn, if it was only that easy.
If only it was that easy. So Sir Leslie, for the record, is famous for his company Thies Bros. That logo, now you've seen it, you'll see it everywhere.
God, that's terrifying to say.
And they were famous for being happy to operate outside of the union for the benefit of mining.
Classic.
This is because the Thies Bros are a
Tees, who cares?
Tice?
TS.
TS. It's because the TS Bros are a family company, so they didn't have employees or whatever. This meant the Prime Minister didn't have to send in the army to keep the mines open as strike breakers, which he had been doing because the Thies Bros were happy to just scabby, and so the soldiers could go back to World War II or whatever.
Oh, good.
So Joe and Leslie knew each other from their industry days. So when Joe gets into power, Leslie bribes him a bunch, getting him really favorable conditions for his coal companies to export to the rapidly industrializing Japan, which we remember from earlier, leading to a bunch of money blowing back into the pockets of some Australians. So like the birth, incubation, and manifestation of the Australian coal industry that's dooming us all. Yay! That's what Thies Bros did. Also Cloudland.
Also Cloudland.
Yeah. So Bob's not part of like the Joe inner circle necessarily, but
no, he's too fucking wild for it. But I'm sure like he's
he's too wild for it. But he's just like not there.
Yeah, he's out in the middle of fucking nowhere.
He's too far away most of the time. But the small business owners and small scale landholders in his area see massive benefits from Joe, so he comes to think of him as one of the greats. When they butt heads, and it's relatively frequently, seems to be more frequently than anyone else within Joe's government, it tends to be as a disagreement regarding events or policy regarding Indigenous people. In 1983, for instance, there was a riot at Edward Mission, now known as Pormpuraaw. Information about what happened that day is tightly controlled and profoundly distorted by Joe's government. The initial reports are of 300 men with guns and rum running through the street, and by the time Steve Mam from the National Aboriginal Council is able to get to the media and explain that it was about a dozen people with neither of the above, the political world is in a tizzy. And this isn't a good time, but Pormpuraaw has the worst flag I've ever seen.
Oh, no.
For a really specific reason.
Okay.
Like, it's of the scale of quality that you would generally expect for a flag from an area this small.
Yeah.
However, in the flag...
That's terrible. This looks kind of like clip art of a palm tree and clip art of a crocodile and also just like upper North Queensland, like the map.
What's in the middle of the flag?
The word Cairns.
A different city, hundreds of kilometers away.
Yeah, and then an arrow that's in a weird position pointing to Pormpuraaw. That's crazy. I guess they were like, well, it's over here. If you know where Cairns is, you can work out where we're further away from them.
Like, there's plenty of things...
That's crazy.
There's plenty of things going on here that break, like, the basic vexillological rules, which is silly, right? Flags are art. You're not meant to have, like, clip art. It's meant to be easy to draw by a child. You're not meant to put words on it.
Yeah, and also in different, like, fonts.
You shouldn't have different fonts.
And like, why is the tree and the state get to be in color, but the crocodile is just like an outline, like a really thick outline, and everything else doesn't have outlines.
And all of that,
like, what is going on?
All of that is fairly normal for around the world. The like flags of these sorts of shires, right?
You know, just like
What's
somewhere
not
someone's
normal
just fucking made it.
Is a fucking map of a different place.
That's so funny.
That's not normal. I have to think this is the only flag that has a map of a different city on it.
I have to hope, because that's really funny.
Anyway, so Nationals members until this point of the Pormpuraaw Mission riot had been banned from consulting with the National Aboriginal Council of Steve Mam. I think they're communists or they're separatists or some other pablum. And Steve says to the media, like, Bob Catter hasn't even come down here and it's been a week later. And he's the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs at the time, right? So everything in remote Queensland seems to go through Patrick Killeran, who is a public servant most notable for being pro-Indigenous slavery and pro-stealing children. When bauxite was found near the Cape York community of Mapoon in 1963, Patrick stood on the deck of a government ship to oversee the police-led evictions and burning down of everybody's houses.
Jesus.
That picture there is the only house that was left standing afterwards.
That's fucking crazy.
Bob is one of a few people who describes Pat as running an evil regime. This is, again, a public servant. Back to the Mission riot, Bob goes down there to talk with Steve in a move described at the time as putting his job on the line and going against Pat, who's one of Joe's best mates.
Yeah.
We go to comment from veteran Liberal Party politician Charles Porter, talking to the Bulletin in June of 1984.
Last week, while Caddo was beginning his first round of calls from his base at Weeper's Albatross Motel, Charles Porter was singing Caddo's death wish. His days are numbered. It's inevitable he will go. He's losing touch with his colleagues, let alone the Premier. Damn.
42 years later, who's still in office, Charles?
It's crazy. It's crazy how much, like, Bob Caddo has survived and endured.
He, like...
It's kind of fucking ridiculous.
It's fucking...
Like, I know he's the father of the house, and that makes him the oldest motherfucker who's been there.
But it's bizarre.
That's crazy.
It's bizarre.
It's
and he's
crazy.
Just chugging along.
He's just still there.
He's still... Like, this guy lived to be 98, and he still died before Bob was out of office.
You know?
Like, he
what
was
the
wrong
fuck?
about this. Like, that's been wrong for 42 years.
That's
He was wrong
insane.
about it for, like, 38 years. He's like, he's going to go soon.
He's gonna go soon, and Bob's like, no.
So, when Bob arrives, Pat Killoran loses this battle.
Yeah.
Like, obviously. And Bob's going to throw his weight around a little more in some of the pre-Marbo land rights sphere. Before those two famous cases, which flow into the native title world that we're in now, one of the highest profile land ownership changes was the deed of grant in trust or dogged lease. The rights granted by a dogged lease are significantly different to those granted by a native title lease. Dogged is perhaps closer to land rights than native title, in that with a dogged lease you have more rights to stop development on your land, in theory. Do you remember a few weeks ago when we were talking about nuclear waste dump and how the consultation didn't allow for native title holders to say no to the project?
Yeah.
So it's not real consultation? Dogged, in theory, is different in that you get freehold title, which is just land ownership how we understand it. You get to do whatever you want within the law, and on that land, a company can't just decide it's going to do something.
Yeah.
As opposed to native title, which needs to go through a council that might have non-economic concerns. How dare they? Bob has a particular hatred for World Heritage protection ideas. I've got a chat between him and his senior staffer, Peter Lacey, in 1987 after the Environment Minister, Graham Richardson, had declared Queensland rainforests a World Heritage Site, protecting them from development. This is as described in Bob Catter's book, and it's during a tough election campaign for Catter Sr.
All right. In the car with senior staffer Peter Lacey, I vented my anger and frustration. How could I have got so carried away? Richardson has played us like a violin, played us for naive fools, and he's right, we are. The old man's gone and Leichhardt's a no-show, and it's my fault.
I don't think this is so bad, Bob.
Said Lacey, in the office always referred to as Ace. Are you mad, Ace? We're gone. Switch on the ABC. Read the Cairns Post.
World Heritage Declaration isn't controlled by the Australian government. The terms and conditions for the declaration of an area are usually laid down by the United Nations, and Australia must meet those terms and conditions.
Go on, Ace, I'm listening.
Well, it's actually a committee of the United Nations, UNESCO.
Ace, I'm beginning to like this.
Well, it's actually better still. It's a subcommittee of UNESCO, the current membership of which is in Bulgaria, Mexico.
Ace, I love you. I love you.
I haven't finished yet. The current president is Mr. Amadou Mahtar Mbow of Senegal. So,
Why does he? Why? Okay, what the fuck is?
what's the plan?
What is what is going on? What the fuck is going on?
So these forests have been declared a World Heritage Area. That's by Graham Richardson, who we've spoken about a few times. And Bob's really sad because it means that development won't be able to happen on
Damn
these
it.
forests, right? But Ace is like, well, it turns out actually now the forests are owned by this Senegalese man via the UN. It's not true, but Bob puts out...
This is how Bob is being... this is the only way Bob can understand it.
Yeah. Well, no. I would say this is something Bob knows he can say and be technically correct.
That's fucking
Because
funny.
he puts out a press release kind of like, well, everybody's sorry, but there'll be no more development because we've given your land to this Senegalese guy. This is colonization by the United Nations.
I mean, the way his mind works is truly a mystery.
So the Timber Workers Union, who are already worried about losing, like, tree cutting jobs, now had the added authority of self-righteousness. We're being colonized. And Graham Richardson gets beat up a little in the town of Ravenshaw, and Bob Catter Sr. stays in politics. In Bob's words, Daddy retained his seat. That's in the book. That's Bob's words as like a 65-year-old. Like, Daddy retained his seat. Because,
Come on, man.
like, I don't know, man.
Come on, man.
So, back to doggets. That's deeds of grant in trust or whatever. You'll notice that I said doggets are, in theory, freehold titles.
Yeah.
There is, as always, a bunch of catches.
Classic.
Like a cricket match, I guess.
Well,
There were severe restrictions placed on the rights granted by a dogget lease, with many freehold actions requiring the minister's approval and little hidden, the government can take this back clauses that can be triggered by certain events. Doggets didn't include mineral rights, nor the right to sell traditionally hunted food and such. And dogget leases make no mention of sacred sites, which would be like World Heritage Protection style things.
yeah.
What it does include is the right for individual landowners to sell their land with approval from the government. So while native title doesn't give people the right to say no, dogget gives people the right to say yes. Either way, you're getting a mine.
Yeah.
Bob says that he's convinced Joe's government to pass this legislation under a personal responsibility ethos.
I won because I convinced Joe that it was better to make the Aborigines earn their own keep. Now if they smash up their house, the government won't give them a new one. They'll either have to repair it themselves or live under a tree. Fucking crazy that you would imagine the government would be repairing houses anyway.
Yeah.
There are people out there living in tin fucking shacks.
There are people out there living in tin fucking shacks, and the government will drop off a new tin roof
You know?
6 months after you ask.
Yeah.
And that's repairing the house. And the dogget leases are... There's a subtype of lease. I haven't gone into it. They're referred to as catter leases. There's a few people with extant catter leases.
What?
And it gets into just deeper economics things.
Okay, cool. There isn't like a fundamental difference between a catter lease and a dogget lease.
Catter is a subset of a dogget lease.
That's...
And it's mainly in the Torres Strait that these leases exist, and there's, a number of places that still operate under this lease arrangement.
Yeah.
Which is part of why Bob keeps saying that the Torres Strait are the most successful race.
Because they've got the catter leases or whatever.
The catter lease. So, the big contention that Bob makes retrospectively in his book, the reason that this style of lease is better ethically is that the dogget lease gives the landowner something that they can put against a bank loan.
Right.
Rephrased into the truth, the dogget lease gives a landowner something the bank can take away one day once the business you took the loan out for goes south.
Wow.
More realistically, again, it gives you tremendous motivation to sell your land away.
Yeah.
And allows a big company to buy up a bunch of properties near each other. But basically, Bob thinks money is magic because you can use money to turn money into more money, and that's why you need to do land rights this way, rather than native title. We get this scene from an incredible race of people of Bob speaking to Doomadgee businessman and councillor Tony Chong.
I was visiting Doomadgee, a first Australian community in northwest Queensland, when local businessman Tony Chong, known as Chongy, came to see me.
Bobby, got a problem. Got a block? Council agreed.
One of those 5 blocks with Michael Diamond?
Yeah, got fencing, got yards, got water, even got a donga. I think you put him there when you were minister. Only one thing I ain't got, cattle.
You been to the banks, Chongy?
Yep, said they want security.
Been to the government to get a title deed?
Yep, said no, said none available on Aboriginal lands. I think this picture is probably from around the time of that meeting. This is Bob and Tony hanging out.
Damn.
So I've mentioned this a couple of times, right? The magic of money and private ownership that Bob brings up all the time. I find this entire mode of reasoning repellent because I have a degree in economics that I didn't realize at the time was me being propagandized. This made the section really painful to write in an annoying way, but I persevered, and I will start with the kernel of agreement that Bob and I think, would have.
Okay.
Money intends to substitute for trust.
I suppose yes.
If we woke up one day and money had completely disappeared, but everybody agreed to perform the same exact actions that they were going to do that day, and everybody trusted everyone else's agreement, and you just said thank you instead of being money, then not a single thing would change. I know I'm kind of describing like an SCP or something, but this is a thought experiment. All the goods would still move around, and the same people would get the same services, and the world would continue exactly as it was. The money itself doesn't do anything.
True.
It's only as good as its ability to facilitate the next interaction you have. Instead of money, you'd just be getting, thanked.
Yeah.
Right? And for the record, if you want to read about this in a scholarly way, I understand the labor theory of value. There's probably some, nerdy way to read about this.
I mean, I think things for you and I wouldn't change. I think yeah, as a thought experiment, things for most people in the world wouldn't change except for the people whose only purpose is like getting money. Like if you're a landlord without any other employment.
Landlords, stockbrokers,
You get
hedge
nothing,
fund managers,
you know, like-
you'd just be sitting at a computer all day.
Yeah.
And everyone would kind of realize, like, hey, no one thanks this guy ever.
Yeah, it's like, hey, what's the point of you?
And, like, all their needs would be met.
Yeah.
But they'd have this, like, magical universal trust that we've talked about,
Yeah.
right? And I have a disdain for these people, as we all do, for their contribution of nothing but confounding organizations. Their existence is proof that money is not a substitute for value, for the value that your life provides others. But Bob?
If coal-fired power stations electrify the country, banking similarly energizes its economy. All banking is dependent upon the belief that, if one turns up to withdraw one's money, it will be there and the bank will hand it over. The integrity of the banker has been, therefore, the key element in the creation of banking, and one of the more important achievements of modern human endeavour.
The next few pages are a mishmash of quotes from Paul Samuelson, the guy who invented economics or whatever.
Right.
His nephew's in the Epstein files.
Oh, good.
And it's a little story that illustrates the magic of money. It basically goes like this. I'm kind of doing this from memory, right?
Hell yeah.
So I give 1,000 to the bank, and the bank loans out 900 to I've forgotten what he called him, to a forest nymph. And she invests that in her forest nymph business by depositing it in a business account.
Got it.
I can go in and withdraw $1,000 whenever I like. The forest nymph can withdraw $900 for her business whenever she likes, which means there's now $1,900 in the economy that the bank has created. This is, again, Economics by Paul Samuelson, and I didn't change any of the details. He's talking about forest nymphs all the time.
I hate that.
Isn't it very disgusting?
That's stupid.
Well, he says, when Paul Samuelson says, like, people are repelled by this, and it's like,
Yeah,
because you're lying.
Because it's fake pretend shit.
Look at the logic they used to trick us with, right? Because, like, what this means materially is that the forest nymph who runs Nymph's lymph node relief has enough goodwill with the society that she can hire a builder to do an extension of the hut, right? The process of banks depositing and transferring their accounts hasn't created the builder. And this becomes very apparent when people need their money at the same time. And it turns out the banks don't have it because they've been telling everybody else that they're good for it.
Yeah.
Like, if everybody wants to build something, for instance, to set up their own business, they can't do it all at once because there's only so many people and so much material. It's then we realize that banks don't do anything because the entire mechanism of society is built on money transferring hands. All of those mechanisms fall apart, and that's a recession. The most recent one was, this for housing.
Yeah.
Right? And so you have emotional enforcement mechanisms, right, which is business optimism. But when that doesn't work, when you can't get people to buy in and invest, well, back to Bob.
During the 12th and possibly 13th centuries, the Knights Templar, the preeminent of the three crusading Catholic orders, with their high nobility and awe-inspiring deeds, which commanded universal respect, had representatives in every European country. With the Pope's imprimatur, and with a sword to answer any who questioned their integrity, it was no surprise then that as Europe emerged from the Dark Ages, banking emerged as one of the Knights' principal roles. I mean, that just sounds like mafia shit. It just sounds like they're taking people's money and being like, I'll hold this for you, and if you say no thank you, I will kill you, and it'll be mine anyway.
You're a genius. You're not a genius. You know exactly where this is going. So
yeah.
I've interfaced with this idea before, but like from a leftist, kind of explaining how money's evil. And both that person, I think it's like, it might just be Debt the First 1,000 Years by David Graeber or whatever. Both that person and Bob then go, and I think Bob just read this book, then go, and that's how the Knights Templar became the Medici family, who are a mafia-style organization, right? And like, I come away from this fearful about the implications of boom and bust, of the power that our system affords money accumulation. But I also come away having these like paranoid, far-reaching history thoughts that I struggle to hold in the context that I'm in. They're just scared ones, right? Because like, we have to still pay rent in a dollar currency.
Yeah.
There mightn't be a Knights Templar, but there's still somebody out there who will kill me if I owe them money.
Yeah.
Bob comes away convinced that the only way to bring prosperity or happiness or whatever to indigenous people is to lock them into the money trap and enforce it violently if we have to. Because after all, if nobody needs forest nymph lymph node relief, the bank will take the hut. It's just an article from The Guardian from 2024 about how repossessions hit a decade high.
Yeah.
Right?
Last resort home repossessions on track for decade high in New South Wales as households hit financial cliff.
So that's 2024. You'll remember interest rates have gone up. We know what the end of this is.
Yeah.
So this all links to the flattened version of history that allows Bob to, I guess, celebrate Indigenous people without reckoning with the legacy of the frontier wars, for instance. His book has a bunch of anecdotes where he speaks to people like Tony Chong, who, for the record, was arrested not long after that conversation for 2 misconduct charges and a forgery charge.
Nice.
Tony is an indigenous person, sure, but he's also a business owner, a landholder, a rodeo rider guy,
Crazy.
and a counselor. And those are contradictory roles. And being a business owner affords him possibilities that aren't universal. They can't be universal due to the practical realities of our world, due to the unrenewability of our modes of production, and how people acting dishonorably can quickly hijack the entire system because of the centralization of the power of money. But in Bob's money mindset, and this is a relatively mainstream mindset amongst Australian politicians, the imposition of private property and the associated money that it creates is the reason that, let's say, quality of life is possible. Here's Bob again with one of the most unbelievable statements I've ever seen.
Oh no, okay. Also, this image of him is incredible.
Yeah, thanks. I was really happy when I found it.
It's how I feel at the end of my workday. It should appear obvious to any objective social commentator or historian that the often portrayed ugly picture of Aboriginal Australia would be exactly the same picture in every town, village and city in the rest of Australia if the inhabitants were suddenly bereft of the private ownership of land and realty, and all that land and realty was suddenly to belong to the so-called community. So what, he's just like, if communism happens, we'll all look like poor taste caricatures of Indigenous Australia.
Yes, that's what he's saying. It's that flattening, right?
Yeah.
Like to turn his statement on its head, to argue with Bob Catter for a second, as if such a man could be argued with.
You know,
if the rest of Australia and its inhabitant were suddenly bereft of most of their friends and family due to them all dying from violent sickness and famine, I wonder if 300 years of continued oppression wouldn't help.
Yeah, you know, it's crazy. It's crazy, but I think that might have also been part of the problem, Bob.
I don't know, Bob.
That's crazy.
But Bob knows, like, the right people in town, right? He knows the entrepreneurs and the industrialists who also tend to happen to be political leaders in small towns.
Yeah,
and
of course.
Through whatever reason, they have money and property. A lot of Indigenous people, not the majority of it, but there's plenty of it, like, Indigenous landholders, big landholders running ranching operations, right? And as I've mentioned, he spends a lot of time in his book and on social media using this to burnish his bona fides as Uncle Bob, who speaks to the common man in the common tongue, right? For instance, here's a picture of him with the then mayor of Mornington Island, Bradley Wilson.
Why is Bradley Wilson looking like he's trying to strangle him and Bob's like got his hands up like, oh, don't choke me?
Bob was like, this is the ideal relationship between a mayor and a state representative.
Just like, mayor hates state representative.
Yeah. Bob's like, this is the right thing.
And he's not wrong.
Yeah, but he's like, but I'm different. See, because like I'm coming down here and letting this guy pretend to choke me.
I'm down here, you know. I'm in the trenches, as it were.
So Mayor Brad was also, shortly before this photo, I think, arrested for one of the more controversial crimes that still exists in Australia. It's referred to in reports as sly grogging. I have to assume that's at least a term of common parlance in these circles. A different Bradley Wilson was arrested around the same time for biting a mouse in half, but I've confirmed different guy. As you can probably guess, sly grogging is having alcohol somewhere you're not allowed to have it.
Yeah.
That's a law that's almost exclusively applied in the context of Indigenous Australians.
Yeah, because there's those communities that just get blanket fucking bans being like, you can't have alcohol here.
Yep.
Government said naughty, naughty, you can't have it.
And I think that's like the majority of these cases. I think there's a few councils.
They're the only places with like prohibition basically in place.
Yes. There's a few councils, I think mainly in the Torres Strait, that have internally, apparently, gone dry. I don't know how true that is. I don't know if it's different if you're on an island.
Yeah.
Like, it's like feasible to do maybe on an island compared to... But we're going to pick up on that next time.
Okay.
Because I was like, that will make the episode too long if we go into that here. We're going to talk about Bob's views of social control. Once you've flattened everybody into these citizens, you have to then deal with making sure these citizens keep showing up to work. And alcohol is one of the most universal concerns that would-be nation builders have to contend with.
Yeah.
He has like such a way of dealing with things. I'm deciding still on the Patreon, we might read a whole debate from the Queensland Legislative Assembly in 1991 because he's unbelievable. Unbelievable. We're going to just finish with a little clip from it where I'll play everyone but Bob Catter.
Okay, amazing, okay.
You're going to start there at as.
As far as we can make out, people have been drinking alcohol for tens of thousands of years.
You've been drinking it every day.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, the gentleman is interjecting from other than his usual seat. I just thought I would draw that to your attention. It is not because I am in any way sensitive to his interjection.
I believe you've been drinking it anyway.
I am a teetotaler.
You're also a fool.
Someone called me a fool. That would make it about the 400th time I've been called that, so the member could save her vocal cords.
400 people can't be wrong.
Damn, that's crazy.
That went on for an hour.
That's crazy.
The whole thing's like that.
Holy fuck. Bob is just like, hey, I'm speaking, and everyone's like a fucking idiot, and he's like, well, people have called me a fucking idiot a lot, actually. You don't have to say it again. Someone's like, yeah, you fucking idiot. And he's like, come on, guys.
Look, reading that, in the context of that discussion, I would say I'm more on Bob's side.
Well, it's because
in the issue.
Bob is frequently getting like bullied, and it's mostly not because of the content of what he's saying, right?
Yeah.
Like, sometimes he'll say some off the wall shit, but when he's trying to like genuinely put forward like an issue, people are just like, yeah, you crazy cunt.
Yeah,
why
you
don't you
fucking
just
drunk.
fuck off? And he's like, what?
Well, the
They're
thing
just
is,
like-
he's still, like, he's also really confusing because in this speech, he brings up Cicero in this fucking
And that's
debate.
because he's like some weird, he has this like pseudo intellectualism about himself, which is like, you know, the farmer reading Shakespeare or whatever
Yes.
vibe. Like, it's like, you
Yes.
know, the idea of,
He knows the greatest of everything.
you know,
Like Reader's Digest. Got plenty of them.
I think it makes sense as well, given like his history and his family's history, that it's like, yeah, you've got to like be worldly, but also down to earth.
Yeah.
Like a worldly down to earthness is crazy.
And it's like, I don't think he's either.
Yeah.
You know, like he's just a guy with property.
Yeah.
He's like, son-in-law is one of Australia's biggest handgun manufacturers.
And that's why he needs to make sure all those kids have guns.
Right? I don't think it's anything more than that. I don't know. I think I'm getting to the point where like both interpretations of Bob, like Bob's like simple and dumb, or Bob's like a savvy political operator and knows what plays well.
Yeah.
They are merging into the same thing.
Yeah.
Like I think I'm understanding him pretty well. But in this argument he's having there, it's basically like the party he's arguing against want to have tougher sentences for drink driving,
Right.
prison sentences. And Bob's arguing for, no, we should be taking their cars away for a period of time. Because
Right.
a prison sentence means that person's family is fucked.
Right. Okay. Not mad about that perspective.
Yeah.
Intrigued by it.
And I think he's also like, that person, if that person is a problem drinker, they're going to have a easier time dealing with that at home.
Yeah.
And then there was something about like, and we can install things in their cars that stop the speed at like 60.
Exactly. And the breathalyzer thing where you got to like blow into it
He
for the
speaks
car to
about that as
start.
well.
Yeah.
So, and like, there's ups and downs to all of this. I think I agree with his point about like imprisoning someone for drunk driving, because he calls it like punishment syndrome, because there's all these people who are like, well, what about the people who have to live on these streets with those people, right?
Yeah.
And like, I understand that, but you'll just probably create more drink drivers by arresting people all the time for drink driving. And he also makes the point where he's like, these punishments can't be like, and this is in the 80s, these punishments can't be the same in Brisbane as in out nowhere, because in Brisbane you can call a cab and it'll show up.
Yeah.
That's not true in the far north.
Yeah. It's just like, that's it.
But they just call him an alcoholic. And he's like, I don't even drink. But that's
So fucking
that's
funny.
where we'll
Anytime
stop on.
Bob's just like, what about the people? People are just like, you're a piece of shit.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, I just think, and they're like, yeah, you are slur. It's
And
like,
to-
come on, man.
Like, this is the same year that he had to apparently, like, he got in heat about a joke involving drunken Aborigines. That he's like, I was, we was in good humor. So he's a loose unit, and they know it, and they know his dad.
Yeah.
But he is doing something different.
Yeah.
I think there's like a different, like, I think I understand it a lot more now, but it's not really easily mapped. It's just pro small business.
Yeah.
And small business, like, you'll see the left and right both have things about it. It's why it doesn't, like, Like, that's where it, I think, starts from, is like pro small business for the purpose of increasing the amount of kids.
Yeah. 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 You know, that does feel very, I think that does help to explain Bob a lot, you know?
I think so. I think most of what he says makes sense from, if you keep that in mind, that he's
Yeah.
like, I want small business, including like small businesses include small mines, or whatever,
You know.
right? But also government supported coal.
Indie minds.
Like, everything is to the perspective of like, there needs to be the facility for there to be lots of people in the north of Australia.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a like noble goal, but I think it does explain why Bob Catter, seemingly contradictorily, is one of the louder voices against places like Woolworths and Coles.
Yeah.
Because that could be a small business.
Yeah, that could be like, you know, your mum and dad's shops
Exactly.
or whatever.
And I think that's better. But also, a mum and dad's shop under capitalism will still exploit people eventually,
For sure.
right? Unless, you know, like, you have to, like, the whole point of competition is that eventually the competition stops and then one person has the monopoly.
Yeah.
And whether or not he's like just kind of simple and naive and like everyone he meets that he likes is a good person, or he's like a savvy and cunning political operator who understands the media better than it seems. I think both of those things are the same.
I think with Bob, it's very broken clock. You know,
Yeah,
like I
there.
think, you know, sometimes it just fucking hits correctly, and
Yeah.
whether he intends for it to or not. Sometimes he intends for it to hit a certain way and it does. Sometimes he hopes it'll hit a certain way and it doesn't. But I think the fact of the matter is he's probably just gotten quite good at guessing when things are going to work out,
Yep. And
depending on which character he's playing, you know, because he's been there for so fucking long. He's had the experience.
I think depending on which character he's playing, that's a really good point when we
Yeah.
think back about like Abdul Muhammad, the cane farmer.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure like Bob doesn't pretend to not be Lebanese when he's visiting Abdul.
You know?
Like, it's just when these characters come, because he's playing the character, right?
Yeah, when
and
all
it's
of
just when
these
these characters have to interact.
Yeah, is where shit falls down and he's got to, like, make a decision. And sometimes that's just, like, being like, oh, I'm just crazy Bob, you know?
Just crazy Bob.
And everyone's like, oh, I guess he's just crazy Bob. And then he's like, whew.
Because his electorate's huge.
Yeah.
So what's happening is he's like, Bob.
Whatever happens over here at Mount Isa doesn't fucking relate to who he is over in, like, wherever
Charles
else.
Towers, yeah.
Versus where he's over here versus over here.
And
like,
that was true of Bob Sr.
Yeah.
Like, he got to use that.
He can just,
Bob-
the distance means he can just kind of be whoever he needs to be wherever he is.
Bob had a bit of an adjustment when it came to like everything is on camera and being shared by everyone. And so Abdul Muhammad in Cairns or whatever is going to hear about what you said in Brisbane.
Yeah.
And also, like, it doesn't quite work when you're in the national limelight. You can't say everything.
Yeah.
But if you keep it contained and if you keep it to like the people that you're talking to.
Yeah.
So, but we'll end there. We'll end there for today. Thank you very much for joining us on this continued adventure into, like, Bob Catter, but also a lot of things. I feel like we're covering a lot of different things in this series.
mean, you have to, because, again, of the length of Bob's
Well,
tenure.
it's been so
like,
long.
he's just been around so long. You can't be around that long and not have some fundamental impacts on how Australia is now, right?
Yeah, and also there's, like, things about Australia's history that I am both like interested to learn about from Bob, but then learn the actual story later. Because I guess, yeah, like there's plenty of things where, based on his book, we have a co-interest in a sense.
Yeah.
But just very different perspectives on why we're interested in it and what we're reading from it.
It's just so funny. It's just so funny. I can see in another world how, like, Bob would be, like, a really interesting person to talk to. He is now, but I could see in another world where that's, like, in a different flavor, you know?
Look, the first thing he did in uni was he studied law, and then he drops out. I think just trades property for a while, right? I think Bob Catter, the lawyer, is, like, a fun person to have at a relatively big party.
That would be incredible. I would have loved to see him as a lawyer, especially in, like, his, like, you know, a Kubra get up and stuff, because I'm imagining him like the equivalent of the, like, Alabama lawyer was just like, nah, I ain't no fancy book reader.
Oh my god.
He's got a big old cowboy hat and a
No,
bolo
I
tie.
be not from Queensland.
You know,
from
and I just imagine him being like, well, now, I wouldn't know about all of that property law, but what I do know is a man's house is where he lays his head at night. You know, like
exactly
shit like that.
I think
I think that would have been incredible.
I think he would have been pretty good as
Yeah.
a lawyer. He probably would have been successful.
Jury would have fucking loved him.
I think Robbie would probably, I don't know, I get the feeling that Robbie would prefer to just have a job. Because, like, Robbie also kind of is like, I don't, like, sometimes he just calls him Bob.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, like, what?
Same
like,
thing, his electorate's so big, he's not there a lot of the
Yeah,
time.
so he's just like, oh yeah, he's my dad.
Yeah, he's like, I'm much
Bob
closer with
Catter.
my mom. And he says, like, about Bob, he's like, yeah, he doesn't talk about his mom a lot. He starts crying, like, whenever it comes up.
Damn.
Yeah, which, like, I don't know, I could believe that those tears are Bob having to reckon with, like, as far as he has been told, someone wanted him on this earth so much they'd die for it.
Yeah.
And that's probably confusing. I don't want to give him the credit to necessarily say, like, he has thought about all of the reasons that pressure women into having children. I don't think he's about that idea of things.
Yeah, because he's only got Robbie, right?
No, he's got 5.
Jesus Christ.
He's got 5. One of his daughters is married to this like arms
That's
manufacturer.
right.
There's Robbie. The other 3 I haven't really seen much about. I think there's 5.
Fuck.
But like he's still with his like first wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, good Christian.
Apparently so. Anyway, that's Bob Part 3. We've been Shouldn'ta Come. You can catch us on YouTube if you want to see the slides, youtube.com/@shouldntacome. We're on Patreon, www.patreon.com/shouldntacome. And you can email us, shouldntacome@gmail.com. Each of those times that is spelled SHOULDNTACOME, or the name of the podcast. I've been Yanni.
I have also been Kieran. I was about to say I've also been Yanni, but then I pulled out last moment.
I've also been Kieran is somehow weirder. Because it implies that I said I was Kieran. Now the listener's going to be confused.
Yeah, no, I've also been Kieran, as Yanni just said. She's been Kieran. I've also been Kieran.
Wait, who's that out there?
Archie's been Kieran.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye.